Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about Nexus. Sonatype Nexus is a repository manager. Yeah, with help of these tools, we will be able to store that in all artifacts, especially in jar file, war file, ER file, or any other binary files or files. So these tools will play very important roles in if we'll talk about in DevOps and DevOps implementations. So if you are using that in Jenkins and their pipeline or any like in a build system where pipeline is there, so of course you need somewhere to store that in your file system, especially in past we used to store the files in file servers and in forms of NFS and so on and so forth. Yeah, but that is not a right approach for directly go through that in especially in program where we have like in configurations and it will be done entire things. Yeah, so in our case, how we are going to use that in Nexus and their utilizations, especially in continuous integration sections. If you will see that in Jenkins, Maven, and Nexus and Ansible is there along with a continuous deliverable. So there is a connectivity between that in Jenkins to Maven and Maven to that in Nexus, or in some conditions will we have directly connectivity from like in Jenkins to that in Nexus or Ansible to the Nexus. For in terms of in Ansible to Nexus, it will be go and pull that in release packages like snapshot packages or any other binary file, yeah, which is we are not going to store into that in Bitbucket. Yeah, so in that case Nexus will be play that in all scenario like in Jenkins, Maven and Ansible integrations with an Nexus, and we'll store that in inside that in Nexus itself we have a lifecycle management, user management and so on and so forth. We'll talk in upcoming session. And more and less Nexus provide that in both like in facility there is open source along with paid services as well. So we are going to go through that in all open source services including the installations to that in utilizations. However, I personally insist to go and use that in paid services if you want to more secure and so on and so forth. So I'm going to talk about some paid services and their benefits. So this is all about the paid services what Nexus is going to provide. Nexus Firewall. So if you talk about the Nexus Firewall, automatically stop risky component from the entering into your software supply chains powered by IQ server. Similarly, we have a Nexus Lifecycle, and that is also provided by the DevOps pipeline powered by IQ server. So, but for that, you have to buy that in license, and you can go through that in a pricing model. But if you see that in a beauty of that these paid services, if you talk about you are developing that in applications into C, Python, Java, and so on and so forth, the it's building the package or file it's going through that in firewall is like in filtering it out, and risky file it's going to be deleted. If not, the file is okay scanned by the firewall, it's going to repository system and then life cycle. There is another good things is there into that in a paid services, especially lifecycle management, like in cloud connectivity with repository. So we can push and pull that in a file from that in a cloud to that in a lifecycle management. And in lifecycle again, it will be take care about that in kinds of, if you see that in a file is coming to that in a read, and after that in a scanning it's going to be some of them is deleted and rest of that is going ahead, or by a scan it's moving ahead. Yeah, so this is all about beauty of a paid services. It's but of course you have to pay that in your license cost. And more or less that's all about in these lectures, and we are going to talk each and every components one by one, especially in open source. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about system requirements, for installing that in a Nexus. So you can refer from the more details like https clone // help.sonatype.com, repo manager theory / system hyphen requirements. Yeah, and there is once you'll download that in Nexus and in that in Nexus and respective versions /bin Nexus.bm options will be there where the minimum configurations is configured. So if you'll see that in a hyphen XMS 1200M and 1200M for XMX, and max directive memory size is also set for 2G. So this will be you'll get that in at the moment in versions Nexus hyphen 3.13.0 hyphen 01. Yeah, it depend on the most probably in upcoming versions you'll be get that in lower and higher as well. But in currently whatever I'm using, it's there as a default. Alternatively, it's all depend on the utilizations. Are you going to use for like in a your one purpose? Are you going to use for like in a professionally or number of users? So you can set that in a profiling in use case. Let's say you want to use that in a small and personal use. So physical memory and RAM 4 GB is minimum. Yeah, repository you can set that in a less than 20. Total blob stores you can store less than 20 GB. Single repository format types, yeah, with these configurations. If you want to medium team, you can use these ones. If you want to use the large enterprise, you can use that in that much of configurations. So if you see that in all configurations, if a physical memory 4 GB, then you will be able to set that in that much of a configurations, not more than that. If 8 GB, then we can increase that a bit more, 12 GB, and so on and so forth. Yeah, on basis of that, like in a as soon as you are going to increase that in RAM, you can put that in heap size accordingly, but not more than 4 GB there. If you see that it's not setting that in heap for more than 4 GB, and you can set that in max directive memory size and so on and so forth. There is some combinations is there why we are not going to use that in more than that, and it's also mentioned into that in upper in this document so itself where you are going to use that in and why. So if you see that in yeah, the minimum heap should always equal set maximum heaps. The minimum heap size like in 1200 MB, minimum heap size less than equals to 4, no, maximum heap size less than equals to 4, not more than that. But it's all depend on the versions. If new versions most probably they will publish, but you have to go through that in this URL and then you'll be able to get it out, or you have to go through that in respective, because we are going to using that in theory, most probably in 4 and 5 in upcoming versions, they will change that in these configurations as well. So in high level you have to understand that these are the three configurations before starting that in Nexus, and we can check in that in a Windows and Linux operating system as well. So in our upcoming sessions we are going to go through that in Windows and Linux installations. Yeah, so that's all about in these lectures, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture we are going to talk about Nexus installation in Linux. So before installing the Linux, we have to talk about that in what are the minimum things required. So we need a Java. So I'm going to use that in as a Linux. So we'll install the OpenJDK 1.8, and of course a Sona type is required. After the installations we'll do that in configuration and how we are going to manage it. So we'll talk about that in all upcoming session. So in these lectures we are going to cover OpenJDK installations and Sona type and respective configurations, like in adding that in user into that in Linux, providing the permissions to the particular users to the respective directly whatever we are going to create, and so on and so forth. So for that I have already a scripts is there, and that scripts it will be utilized to know that in once we are doing that in automations as well on your DevOps as a pipeline, or in that in Ansible as well. So or in AWS also we can use that in as a user data. Yeah. So the first thing first, like in a bin bash, c bin bash, that is a interpreter for like considering as a bash script. After that, we are using that in as a sudo, because in I'm performing this activity into that in AWS. I'm logging with a EC2 user, so I need a like sudo permissions, or you can avoid it if you are logging with an root user. It's up to you, but I'm using that in sudo. So sudo yum hyphen y and update. So this will be update that in OS, and it will bring that in up to like in latest test states, like in any like in patches and so forth required. Sudo yum hyphen y install wget. So wget is required for downloading that in latest Nexus file. And yum sudo yum hyphen y install java hyphen 1.8.0 hyphen openjdk. And once that in Java installations is done, then we are moving to that in cd and slash opt, because this is the Unix Linux environment where you will get the by default forward slash opt forward slash directory. And after that in sudo wget downloading that in a file, a latest unix hyphen dot tar dot gz, and sudo tr hyphen xvzf and latest unix tar. We are just untarring it. Yeah, after that sudo rm minus rf, we are removing that whatever file we have downloaded, because it's already untar. And after that, we are moving sudo mb nexus hyphen 3 dot so and so forth version will be there to that in a instead of all versions direct name of the nexus hyphen versions. So we are just removing the versions and keeping it out for only nexus. So yeah, it will be moved that in that entire directory to that in nexus. And sudo add user, it will be add that in nexus user in that operating system. sudo change chown, it will be change the ownership of a file. Hyphen r, it capital R, it will be represent the recursive. And we are going to provide for like in nexus clone nexus to opt slash nexus. Yeah, and again we are changing the ownership as well recursively to nexus to that in sona type hyphen work. Yeah, and after that we need to change that in an user as well. So there is one file called opt nexus bin nexus.rc. Some of the versions it's all depend on. Yeah, so if not there we can skip this file, but if something is there then you have to change that. In by default it will be there has run underscore as underscore user equal to double inverted comma double inverted comma. So just we are replacing with blank to that in access. And sudo link, we are just creating that in ln minus soft link forward slash opt forward slash nexus forward slash bin forward slash nexus, because nexus is a executable file, to forward slash etc forward slash init.d forward slash nexus. So with help of that once your server is going to be boot, it will be take care about that in a stop and a start activity automatically. After that, we are just adding into that in a sudo check config hyphen hyphen add to that in access. Yeah, but the server I'm going to run that in, in that server only have a 1 GB of a RAM, and we cannot run that in a default configuration. So additional setting I'm going to do that in, especially like in sudo cd hyphen I, searching that in a hyphen xms 1200 m2. I'm changing to that in a hyphen xms 100 m in the file called nexus.bm option. And similarly another xmx 1200 to 400 m, max directory memory size 2 GB to, I'm putting to that in a 4 MB. And after that all this done into that in the file called like in nexus.bm option. And then I'm just doing that in sudo services nexus start. So with help of that service will be started. More and less what you need, the services once it by default is started, it will be run on the port 8081, and the default users name nexus username and password will be like in admins, as a username and password will be that like in admin 123. And we'll talk about that in more on how we are going to log in and after installations. So let's go and do that in installation. So I'm in that in like in server, and we'll say that in Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about how to install all Nexus in operating system like Linux. So in part 1 sections, we had talked about theoretical and respective commands and the system requirement and so on and so forth. Now this is all about in lab. So I'm going to log into the server, and here I'm in a EC2 server in AWS. So I have logged in with EC2 users, and I have set of a command. This command we have already talked line by line. I'm going to perform this command except that in update one because it will take a bit time. And this command I'm going to perform by default. You will get that in a port configure 8081, and with help of will log in it, and default Nexus user and password admin, and admin will 123. So let me go and perform this command. So I paste it all. It will be take about 2 minutes time, and all installations will be done automatically. Yeah, and this command, if you remember, we have talked one by one all. Yeah, almost all done, and services also has started. We can go and check it, inside that in just do that in tail minus 500f sonatype, nexus and log. In this log we'll get that in nexus log, and you'll be able to see that in nexus is started up and running here. So sometime it will be take a bit more time. Let's see, until unless it's started. Okay, out of memory. No, this didn't work. What we'll do, out of memory, due to that in 100 MB 500s and 4 900. So what we'll do, we'll reduce that 300 this one, and we'll reduce 300 this as well. Yeah, and we'll do that in change manually. So let's go into cd and nexus, you know nexus, go to that in cd bin and vi nexus, dot vm options. Come all the way down and just reduce that in a memory, because 1 GB only we have. Okay, we need a sudo access as well. 300 m, and choose the 300 m as well. Free minus m, and we have used that in 774. That's fine, no problem. And we are there in win, and we'll perform the startup command again. Once again, we'll try to stop and then we'll start. We'll see that in fast status. So nexus status it's running, we can stop it. Yeah, and then we'll perform the start once again. Go to that in log locations. Tail minus 500 app sona type, nexus, then log and nexus log. This is started fresh. Let's see if this memory configuration setup it will work it out with this time. Look like yes. Yeah, work it out. So what I did that in, I just changed that because there is a limitations only 1 GB of RAM and available in the server. So I just reduced that in 300 and 300. Earlier it was there in 400, 400. So altogether 100 for 500s and for 900s only 100, and which is not sufficient for 1 GB. So we reduce it and it work now. Now what we'll do, I'll log into that in my AWS console. I'll gather that in IP address, public IP address of the server, and we log into that in a server with a port number 8081, and all done. This is all about I'll log into that in an install that in Nexus into that in AWS. Click on that in a sign in to the ADMIN 123 and click on sign in. So I'm doing especially into that in EC2 instance running into that in AWS with 32 micro, which is the free tier. Yeah, and these are the configuration setting. You'll get it especially, just click on this once, it will be redirect to somewhere else like in actual locations where you'll be able to find that in especially in Linux configurations. We have to, this is the user ID and number of file, you have to increase the, by default it will be there some other values. Yeah, so this is all about in this lectures, and uh, uh, please, if you have any questions, just drop that in the question sections. I'll be more than happy to answer it out. Yeah, but yeah, I'm hoping you have like in, not a T2 micro instance, because if you see that in T2 micro and only have a 1 GB of RAM, and while customizing that in, memory these configurations will able to run it out anyhow, but this is not recommended for using that in actuals. Just for installations purpose I use it. Yeah, so this is all about in these lectures, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture we are going to talk about how to install Nexus in Windows 2010. This is all about theoretical lectures. In part 2 we'll go and install that in, see that in installations. So the minimum requirement is you have to install the Java, and I'm considering you have already done. If not, then refer that in, Java sections for how to install the Java in Windows 2010. And you need a internet connectivity for downloading that in a Sona type binary or zip file. Yeah, and then in this lectures, and part 1 and part 2 you will see the installations and configurations in Windows 2010. So once this is done, and I'm considering you have internet, and you will be able to download the https clone // download dot sonatype dot com /nexus /3 latest hyphen bin64 dot zip. And for starting that in, an Nexus, you have to go navigate until an bin directory, and nexus.exe will be there, and after that / and again you have to type the run. So with help of that you'll able to see that in log file, because some of the scenario in 3.x, so if you not provide that in / run, log file will be not generated. And I'm just placing that in my file into that in a C drive. There is an access folder is there inside that, and once we'll extract that latest -bin64.zip file. The two folders will be created: nexus -3.13.0-01 and sonatype-work. So this is all about in theoretical lectures. In a part 2 video, you'll see that in a how to install it, while how to download, install, and test it into the running into any browser. And by default, user ID and password will be there for like uh, admin as a username in a small, and password also in a small, admin123. And you have to open the browser and type that in http clone // localhost, and clone 8081, and just press enter. You'll be able to see that in successfully welcome screens of Nexus. So that's all about theoretical in these lectures. In our next video we'll see that in installations. And thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lectures, we are going to cover that and how to install that Nexus in Windows 2010. And this is the part 2 video. Yeah, in part 1 we have talked about that in all theoretical parts. In these sections we are going to talk about entire practical, including that in downloading and firmware, and how we are going to create directory structures, doing the configurations and running that, and testing with help of opening that in the browser. Yeah, Nexus URL, and providing the user ID and password, and we'll see that in welcome screens, a screen of app, Nexus. So I have already download. I have already downloaded that in uh, Nexus, and that is there into the I have downloaded into that in Nexus folder. Nexus hyphen 3.13.o hyphen o 01 hyphen win 64. Just right click and extract here. So the two folders will get it. The first folder name, it will be there like nexus -3.13.0-01, and second will get that in a sonatype-work. So in a sonatype work, it will be have another a subfolder called nexus 3, and inside that you'll get the log, orient, temp, and clean cache. Yeah. And in Nexus folder, this will be the main, where all our binary folders, deployment, etc, configurations, jars, and so on and so forth will be there. So our main target is there, nexus.exe and nexus vm, nexus.vm option. So open this file and you'll be able to see that in configurations, and these configurations we have already talked into that in more. Yeah, in system requirements. So this is the top three configurations is a mandatory respect to that in number of users, and the for environment you going to use for, and respective repository as well. So if you are going to use for like in a small team or personally use, that configuration is sufficient. However, if you are looking for like in a big team and all, you have to change that in these configurations accordingly. So I'm not going to do that in any change. This is that in default, and let it be as it is. Opening the command prompt and going to that in Nexus directory, and inside that in cd bin, and now I'm in the bin, and in bin we'll able to see that in nexus.exe. For running that in nexus.ext, we have to type the / and then run. So within a 2 to 3 minutes or up to 4 minutes, you'll be able to see that Nexus has been started successfully. So after that, what we have to do, we have to open the Internet Explorer, and we have to type that http clone / localhost clone 8080, because Nexus will by default run on port number 8080. And once you'll hit the enter into that in any browser, while providing this URL, you'll be able to see that in Nexus welcome page, and after that you'll get that in a login page, where we can sign up by that in our default user admin and password admin123. So installations is still going on and it will be take a few minutes. Let's watch it. Yeah, we have to see that in carefully. If other than info, if you are getting any message, then we have to look into that in look like in some configurations and all is missing. Then you have to rectify it. Alternatively, if everything is fine, then you'll get that in info and final message as an access has been started and so forth. So just wait for like in a few more minutes. Hopefully that will be up and running soon. Some somehow in Windows it's taking longer time. Compared to that in Linux. Yeah, it's still going on. Yeah, it's still going on. So. The other things, yeah, this will be take another 2 minutes more time. Yeah. So for another 2 minutes, what I'll do that we'll talk about that in our installations. So let's say if you want to go and change that in a higher capability and all. So in between, just you have to go and just increase that in a heap size. But heap size we are not supposed to put that in more than especially 4 GB, and we have already talked that in a requirement section, system requirement. Yeah, and once this installations is done, and this part only we are going to cover that in up to that in login into that in Nexus. So I'm muting myself for another 1 or 2 minutes. Once successfully I'll come back again. I'm back. So, Nexus has been started successfully now. So, if the final message you'll get that in a started, so now type Nexus OSS 3.13 dot, O hyphen O1. And now the next step you have to open the browser. So, I have opened the browser, just type that in, HTTP colon slash localhost 8080 and enter. Yeah, so you'll be able to see that in welcome screens. In this welcome screens, you'll in right top corner you'll get that in sign in button. Just click on the sign in. As just stated, the by default username will be there, ADMIN, and password ADMIN123, and click on sign in. So all done, I'm successfully signed into that in screen. This is all about how to install that in Nexus in Windows 2010. uh, uh, while I'm considering, Java was already installed in previous, and I'm also expecting from you as well to go and install it before starting the sessions, otherwise it will not work. So that's all about in this lectures. This is a part 2, and part 1 we have covered that in only theoretical. And thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture we are going to do that in Nexus installation checks. So in the URL https colon // help.sonatype.com, repo manager 3 and installations. You'll be see that in all details, in more details. However, what we need, initials Java is required in either Windows and or like Linux environment. Installations method, you can choose that in binary, zip and tar and so on and so forth. And run as a service. So once, let's say, you are configuring that in Linux, you have to do that in a as a service, and you have to create a soft link into that in a etc folder. So once your server is like let's say rebooting, it will be take care about that in a starting and a stopping automatically. Run behind this reserve proxy. Once we'll learn that in Nginx and Apache, then we'll try to cover these sections. Accessing the user interface we'll do now on directories, which is nothing but in Windows what we have created, like in Cyclone, Nexus, and inside that in Nexus and Sonatype -work directory created. So we have to make sure reason why, if you required for backup and you store that directory structures will be work it out. Yeah, especially in configurations, you have to put that new data directory and configurations and so on and so forth. And you well aware about that. And so you have to schedule that in backup and so on and so forth. After that, we have a configuration, configuring the runtime environment. So runtime environment is nothing but how you're going to use that in Java on running that in Nexus as well. And post installations checklist we are going to follow and do that in one by one. So first thing first, you have to log into that in Nexus, and we have already installed and log into that, and we'll do that in one more time. So once you log into that in Nexus, first thing first, you have to change that default admin password, because by default user is admin admin and password is admin123. And if you are publishing this website into that in publicly, so they will well aware about that, and this is the default user and password, so they can do that in whatever they want. So after installations, that is the first checklist, you have to change the password, and let's go and do it. So I mean, I have already logged into that. Yeah. So let me sign out and sign in again. So I'm just providing the admin123, sorry, admin in username, admin123 in password, and click on sign in. After successfully installations, you will be see that in again welcome screens, and I have logged in with admin users, and this is that indicated that I have already sign in, so I have to do that in only sign out. So you'll get that in so many other options. What you have to do, you have to click on the admin, and that in name of the users, you'll be see that in all these are the options. One things also, you have to change that to this email address as well, otherwise it will be go something other place. Let's say I'm going to choose that in AWSDVOPS by KUMAR at the rate of, yeah. So it's done, and user related BIGTL, and it's there in a change password. So click on the change password. It's asking the changing password required violations of the your credentials. So provide that in a admin 123 admin123. It once it will authenticate, it will allow to put that in a new user ID, a new password. So I'm just going to choose that in same password. I'll put that 1234 admin1234, and I'm confirming admin1234, and all done. Change password has been changed successfully now. But I'm changing that in password admin1234, which is not correct. Use that in your one password with like in more complexity, at least one uppercase, one lowercase, one special character, and number followed by that, and minimum password complexity. So this is the first things you have to do that in as config changes, or it's like in for security changes. Next we have you have to remove the anonymous access. By default, Nexus is open to the public. If you want to secure access to the Nexus, disable Nexus that user. Yeah. So the password change is done now. Then click on the gear symbol. Do you want to discard your changes? No. we have to do that in save change. Click on the gear button. While clicking the gear button, you will become to know that in security sections there is a users. So in this users you'll get the by default admin user and anonymous. Yes, click on these users, and these users will be have by default access. Either you can remove that in there is a status is active is there by default, so you can go and disable it. So disable it and come all the way down and save it. So this is also done. Second step is done. In third step, that is a second step only. Rest of that, this is the main security change. You can change that in email address as well, but this user is disabled, so there is no more any access. So now if I click on that in sign out, no one will be have access for like in a browse the repository, no component match. So once you'll upload that in a release and all, in that case it will be not allowed to like in a view it. Yeah, otherwise if you'll not disable that users will be have a read only access for that new repository, those who have a URL access especially. So that's all about in these sections. In our for upcoming sessions we'll go through that in one by one in more details. Yeah, thanks for hello and welcome. In this lecture we are going to talk about Nexus dashboard tabs and respective links in details. Yeah, so I have opened that in a Nexus URL, and I'm able to see that in welcome screens. And in this welcome screens, we are going to talk about from starting from sign in, questions mark, refresh, and once you'll do that in sign in, you'll get that in a setting items as well, and more setting respective to particular user that is login in. So I'm going to log in. We are going to log in with admin users, and admin 1234 and click sign in. So this is the first things you have to understand, the sign in and sign out. Once you sign in, this is the toggle button, you'll get the sign out. Once you'll do that in sign out, you'll get the sign in button. After that we have a second tab called like in username name of the users and the users logo. So with help of that, you'll be able to change that your first name, last name, or email address, and along with that you can do that in change the password as well. So let's me go and do that in change the password. Before changing the password, it will be prompted out changing password required validations of your credentials, and I have to provide it. Until unless it will not allow it, so I'm providing the credentials and click authenticate, and this is allowing to go and change, provide the new password and confirm password. So I'm going to use that in my new password as same, this is also allowing, so I provided the same password, still I'm able to change it out. You can do that in other password, but this is the way for changing that, like in first name, last name, email address along with a change password. So this button will tab will be play important role for managing that in self, like in especially first name, last name, email address, and change password, and that is a individual responsibility, they can go and do it. Next we have questions mark, which is nothing but help. So if you click on this once, it will be redirect to that in help about you are looking for what documentations, knowledge base, community, issue tracker, and support. So it will go to the respective links here. After that we have a refresh. So before doing the refresh, let me go to that in some other page and click on the refresh. So contents of a body will be refreshed, and you'll get that in latest here data. If something is there, search we'll talk about in bit later. This is the search. If you want to search anything which is there in contents, you'll be able to search it out. After that we have a server administrations and configurations, and that is all about the gear button. So if you click on the gear button, you'll get the administrations. It's all depend on that in users and their role and the privilege. Accordingly this tab will be changed, and they will be have access for that. So we'll talk this ones bit later. Let me go and talk on that in a what is that in a browse server contents. So in this tab you will be able to see the welcome, and this is the landing page, and inside that we have a search, browse and upload. Yeah, so in our previous sections, especially how to upload the file from GUI, we have go through that in upload, and we uploaded the file in especially in Maven releases, and we created one file and put that in extension, so on and so forth. However, if you want, then you can use this as screen for uploading the multiple files as well. But considering the group ID, artifacts ID, and versions will be remaining same for that all those file whatever you are going to upload in case of adding another assets as well. This is all about. If you want, then you can refer that in previous sections, which is how to upload that in files from that in a GUI. Next we have a browse. So if you want to browse that in a like in a assets or like in or any components, you can choose that in a now name of that in a component, and inside that you can go. Let's say I want to go to that in Maven releases. This is that my where I want to browse it out, and I want to see that in some file which is there inside that in my contents like in a artifacts ID. So let's say inside the com we have a notice and we have a version 1.0, and this is the zip file. So once you click the zip file, you'll get that entire file details, and we have opportunity to come and delete it from by GUI, and along with that you have facility to go and download that file. So if you click on this link, the file will be downloaded. Yeah, and it will be stored locally. So with help of a browse, we'll able to see the file, and we can copy the URL. If you'll see that in there is a copy button is there, if you click on the copy, it will be copied that in that URL of that repository. And along with that, with help of that, what we can do, we can this URL will be used for like in any curl, maven and so on and so forth utility update as well. Yeah, on otherwise with the integrations as well. In search, we can search it out whatever's content you want to search. Let's say I want to search that in a notice. Just type the notice and click on yeah. So once you'll click that in a notice, you'll be able to see that in all contents of the notice. Similar thing what we did, that again you can select that in notice and you'll be have opportunity to go and download. In attribute sections, we can see that in what are the attributes has been configured for that as assets. So this is all about that in tab browse server contents. Now the most important things we have like in that is a server administrations and configurations. So inside that we have top level tab along with a sub tab as well. So in top level we have a repository, we have IQ server, we have security, we have support and system. So we'll talk about one by one in all. So let's go and start from the repository. In repository we have a blob storage repositories and content selectors. So um, we'll talk in all one by one. So let's start from that in blob storage. So in blob storage we have default by default created, which is the type is file, and blob count at the moment we have a 33 files in that default and the total size of a 33 file is there 11.7 KB, and but total allocated space we have a 302.8 GB. Yeah, so this is all, and this available available space is all. Let's say we have installed that in Nexus into C drive, and C drive at the moment we have available space 302.8 GB, and that is allocated to that default. There is options to go and create the bill of storage, and we can do it. So let's go and do it, but required access, and I'm considering you have access as a admin, then only you'll be able to perform this activity. So click on the create blob, yeah, button. You'll be prompt that in a forms like, and fill that in a type, name, path, and there is two options will be there: create, blob, store, and cancel. So if you'll do that in cancel, it will be go to that in again home page. If you'll create that in blob storage, now in the type we have a two, file and s3. So file is nothing but just a simple file type, and it will be a store locally. Either that must probably that mount point will be like and mounted to that in EFS, which is nothing but elastic file system in AWS, where we can, that is a more flexibility. Will get that we can store that in a file, and there is no need to like allocate the particular disk space. It will be increase and decrease that in according to that in a demand of our files. There is alternate options we have like in S3. We can directly map that in your below store to that in S3 bucket, and we have to just provide the name, bucket name, access key ID, secret access key, and so on and so forth. On basis of that, you'll be able to store that in your file into that in AWS S3 bucket. So I'm going to choose the file. I'm just going to choose that in my demo blob, my demo, yeah. So we'll put that in my demo blob store, and if you'll see that now we have installed that in an access in a clone, uh, backslash nexus backslash sonatype hyphen work, and inside that in nexus 3 blobs is there. So inside that it's a creating, and this is very important especially for doing that in backup and restore. If you want to make a highly available, then you have to take a backup of this directory, and on basis of that you'll be have the opportunity to yes, restore that in your file on the fly. And of course it will be take a time for like in syncing or restoring, but yeah, we can restore it within an hour, like so and so forth. It's all depend on that in a volume and data size. So click on the create blob storage. Blob storage is created. Still if you see that in the origin count is 0, that means there is no file in this blob, and there is no utilizations as a size, and available space is remaining same whatever we have into that in C directory. So this is all about in blob stores. Now we are going to talk about repository. So by default, these are the repository created once you'll install that in Nexus. Along with that, we have opportunity to go and create the repository. And so so far so forth, we have used that in Maven releases. If you click on the Maven releases, these are the options we have, and we'll see that in one by one. So if you remember, I was trying to upload that in a file which was already there into that in Nexus, and it was not allowing. So reason why, because a deployment policy we have for this repository, it is a disable deploy, but if you allow that in redeploy, it will be go and override that in a file, or you can make a read only. So there is a three options is there: allow redeploy, disable redeploy, and read only. So it's there by default disable redeploy, and let it be. So we can go and delete the repository. We have a rebuild index and so on and so forth. I'm not going to do. Let's go into that in repository and create the new. So if you create the new, these are the types we have, and from there we can create that in repository, including the Docker, Maven 2, and so on and so forth, yom repository, and so on and so forth. I'll choose that in Maven 2 hosted, and just choose that in Maven 2 hosted. Put that in name of repository, my demo repo, and it's asking, are you looking for release, snapshot, or mixed? I'll choose that in a mixed, or you can choose that. It's all depend on that in your requirement. You can choose that in release, snapshot, or mixed. Yeah, and layout policy, you can choose that in aesthetics, or we can see that in permissive. So let it be default. A storage you can choose that in where you want to store. Let's say we have created that in our one blob storage, and we are pointing to that. So with help of that we have a customizations. Instead of a default we can set that our one blob storage. And after that we have a opportunity to go and allow and create that in read only, or we can disable it out. Yeah. So with help of that we'll be able to do and restrict it out. So let's go and allow that in the deployment. Yeah, and click on the create repository. So repository created, that repository will be able to see that click on the refresh button again. So if you click on the refresh button, you will be able to see here, yeah, my demo repo. And if you see that in comparing with Maven releases hosted, but it was there, and this is also there in online now. So we can copy that in this URL, and we'll be able to upload the file as well from this respect. Now repository is done. So this is all about on and off the repository. Along with that we have opportunity to go and delete it out, or rebuild index. So if you click on the delete, it will be allowed to ask you prompt like confirmations deletions, and if you'll say yes, it will be deleted. I'm not going to delete now because you'll use that in further. After that we have a content selectors. Yeah, in content selectors at the moment is nothing. You can go and create the content selector. You have to choose that in name, type, and so forth, and these ones will be created, and you can use that in a further. Yeah. So this is all about repository sections. After that we have a IQ server. So IQ server, if you remember, when we are talking about that in overview of an access, in that time what we talk about that in open source and paid services. So if you want to use that in a firewall, if you want to maintain the life cycle, you have to go and register with IQ server, and then they will provide that in additional features. However, this will be chargeable, so I'm not going to go in more details, and it's a straightforward. Just go and register it out, see that their pricing models, and you'll be get that in a details, and just configure it out. All your like and request response will be filtered it out with help of IQ server if you implement the firewall. Yeah. As you know, so now I'm going to talk about that in more into that in the security. So in security we have a privilege, we have roles, we have users, we have MIOS users, we have LDAP, RLM, MS, and SSL certificates. So more and less privilege roles users are the very important. If you want to implement LDAP, that is also implemented in the SSL certificate. If you want to use that in HTTPS functionality. So let's talk about one by one. So what is the privilege? Privilege is the way for restricting the permissions. Let's say we have a privilege name nx-all. That means this privilege have all permissions. We can do that in anything. So at the moment we are logging with admin, that admin users have nx admin roles, and that roles will be attached to that in this privilege nx all. And we can come and restrict that in these are the all have a less privilege compared to that in what. So if we'll create the any roles and attach that in nx below storage read, so that users will be not have create permissions, only they can go and read it out instead of creating. But we cannot directly attach these ones to that in users. We have to create the roles. So the roles that is a group. We can say that in roles is nothing but a group, and with help of that group, let's say we have nx admin, nx and in MIOS, we can see that in NMS, like in NX, the developer, NS QA, NS DevOps, NS IT, NS, and so forth. And on basis of that, we can allow that in a privilege to that role, and again that roles will be assigned to that in user. So if we'll talk about that in admin users, just click on the admin users, you'll be able to see that in ID, first name, last name, email address. A status is we can go and in active and disable it out. So Yeah, and these are the roles we have. So in if you'll see that in admin users, I have granted the permissions like in privilege to nx admin. So this is nx admin is a role, and that nx admin, if you'll go to that in role, and it's allowed to that in a given a privilege as a nx all. So we can come and allow that in more than one privilege as well. But if you are allowing that in nx all, that is other permissions is not required. Yeah, so this is all about privilege roles and users. Rest of that as well, like in not that much of important. Yeah, and that's a straightforward. Let's go and talk about that in support. So in support we can go and take that in analytics and events. So if you click on the analytics, it will be there is a two options will be there. You can enable it out and save it accordingly. It will be collect that in analytics, and that in all events will be recorded accordingly, and you will be able to see that in that all events, yeah, who is doing that in what attributes is going to be changes and when. Yeah, after that we have a logins. So in that logins, we'll be able to come and set that in login privilege and login levels, not a privilege. So let's say if you want to for root level, you want to instead of info, you want to change that in other, or like in default or warning or error or debug, we can go and change it. Just click on the update and this level is changed. But I don't want to do that in let it be info, but it's on demand. You can come and change it out. There is no problem at all. Along with that, we have a log viewer. In log viewer, you will be able to see that in whatever operations we are doing, and all everything is recorded. So let's say in 1 minute before what we did, that we changed that in uh, root info and we save it out. After that, if I'll refresh it out, one another event will be log, and which we again we change that in from debug to info. Yeah, so that's all about. We can see that in all log tracking whatever is happening inside that in nexus with help of a log viewer. After that we have a matrix that is very important, especially for monitoring that in memory usage, memory distributions, thread status, active web request and web response code, along with web request, and with what operations they are performing, delete, get options, other post and put. So far so forth, there is only post operations is there, and um, post operations is there maximum, along with a web response code. We got that in a 200 maximum. Yeah, and so these are the metrics with help of that we can observe that in a system and their utilization. After that we have a status. So in a status we'll say that in a blob store and deadlock. So in blob stores we have there are 0 of 2 blob stores reporting less than 10 GB of availability. Yeah, so we can go and see, check it out. If something error is there, we can say it. And we have supported zips, and these are the by default setting. I'm not going to change. If you want, then you can let's say if you want to do that in your log file and do that in a zip, then it will be go and done. Yeah, so uh, you can create that in other supported create a support zip other activity as well. After that we have a system information. In system informations, you'll be able to see that from like in whatever's there, where is the installations, what configurations we have do that in, and so on and so forth, and all directory structures and all property of an access. So that's all about in the support. After that we have a system. In system, that is a very important recent past, especially in 3.x they have changed that in this API, and in this with help of this API in there is a versions change is there. So first thing we have API. So now we earlier it was there in different, now we have for, forward slash v1 forward slash assets and so on and so forth, and earlier it was identified by that in different with help of a. So now we have opportunity to integrate directly with better way and maintaining the versions as well, versions 1 versions 2 in upcoming like in releases they will do like that. And we can get that in assets details, whatever details is there, like in assets component format, read only, repository escapes and function, search, support, task, and these are the operations we are going to will be able to achieve that with help of a REST API. Yeah, so with third-party applications we can integrate with, and that will be utilized with help of a REST API. After that we have a bundles. So in that bundles, we can see that in our system bound bundles, like and so forth, other bundles as well, and with respective state, like inactive and so forth. Along with that we have a capabilities. So in capabilities we have analytics, we have audit, we have a node, we have and so forth, like in scheduler we have a UI settings. Yeah, so we can go and do it. Let's say I'm going to do that in a UI setting, we can enable and disable it out, and we can come automatically add and like in added on a Friday, so forth, note about and so we can come and save it. We have opportunity to go and disable it out. We can configure the email server as well, if you want to send that in any notifications, but I'm using the Windows, so I cannot configure it out. But if something is there into Linux, we can go and directly configure, use that in localhost as well, but on port and so forth. Otherwise, if you have any sending that in email host and their user ID, password and port, then you configure the from email address, type the subject and send that in all activity, whatever level you want, enable and disable it out, and so you'll be able to send that in email. Yeah, after that we have a HTTP. So in HTTP we can configure user agent customizations and so forth, and you'll set that in additional HTTP proxy, HTTPS proxy and so forth. And licensing we have. So if you want to use that in licensing, of course you have to select it licensing and install the licensing into that. Yeah, and node is also there. We can install that in multiple node nows. In earlier it was not there as per my understanding, and they have enabled these features. After that there is a very important features. We have a tasks. So with help of this task, we can create it out, and we'll manage that in deleting that in all snapshot which is not required and so forth. So let's say I'm deleting this one because I want to create again. So let's create the task, and these are the tasks we have, like in admin: delete orphaned APIs keys, compact blob storage. So if you want to zip all blog storage, we can do it, and this will be done. So just we have to choose that name of the task, notifications, email, blob storage. We can select to whom you want to compact it out, and choose that in a frequency. Like you can choose that in manually, once, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, and in advance. So if you do that in like in daily, so in daily it will be asked that in a timeline when you want, like in whatever the timing in 24 hours. Let's say you want to do that in 12 midnight, and click on the create task. So this task will be created, and this will be performed every day in midnight, and it will be compressed that in your blob storage. Yeah, so this is just kind of a schedule task or cron job into that in Linux, yeah, or Unix. And more and less we have covered almost everything. Yeah, I'm going to discard it. So that's all about, and if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture we are going to talk about Apache Maven Nexus integration in Windows 2010. So I have installed that in Java, Apache Maven, and Java project has been created with help of Maven. You can refer that in your previous sections, especially in how to create a Java project in with help of a Maven, and the installations process of a Java along with the installations process of a Maven in Windows. So I'm considering you have installed that in a Java, Maven, and Nexus. On basis of that, we are going to perform this activity. So first thing first, you need once you'll install that in Apache Maven, inside the config folder you will be see that in one setting.xml. Inside the setting.xml you have to enable this. By default this will be commented, so you have to go and enable that, like in server sections. In server you can create the, like it will be there, ID, username and password. So ID is nothing but unique ID for which ones we are going to use that into that in our upload command, and username and password it will be there like in whatever you have for your Nexus user ID and password. So at the moment my user ID is a admin, and password I have like in admin 1234, because we have changed that in our password in like in admin 1234, and this ID will be used on basis of this ID. This username and password will be referring to that in our um, deployment command. So in next command we are going to talk about, there is two versions of a file, we are going to upload it with help of a maven. So the command we need to perform in version 1 maven clean, because I want to clean that in after that I want to do the package, because clean package is required until unless this deploy will be not work, because that target directory need to be exist, and this name of that in your jar to be exist. Yeah. So this is the deploy file. It's like in plugins, we can configure deploy clone deploy and hyphen files, and this is that in a parameters group ID. So group ID, if you remember while talking to that in Maven, we talk about this is the com the tutorial by example, and artifacts ID again tutorial by example hyphen app, and versions we are going to use that in 1.0, and generated pom true, it will be generated the pom by default, and packaging I'm going to do that in as a jar. We can choose that in whatever you want. And repository ID, this is the very important, because this repository ID we have said that in Tomcat configure or like sorry maven configure setting.xml file, deployment repo. If you are not going to use that, this will be not, your user ID and password will be not identified. So this need to be same whatever you have configured that in the setting.xml in maven.xml, and repository id need to be like in same. This is not a repository id for which is going to be created into that in an Nexus. This is just repository id or unique id which is going to be identified that in your Nexus server user id and password. Yeah, and this is the URL whatever we are going to upload it. So I'm going to do that in my one release package, and file you are going to refer that in target, and inside the target tutorial by example hyphen app dot so and so forth. So the command you are going to perform that must be there that in that directory there is a in same directory target folder need to be exist, and this file jar.file, otherwise it will not work again. You have to change that in these locations exactly where this file will be there. Yeah. So I'm going to we have go through that in this ones like in deployment repository like in setting.xml admin user id and password, and after that let's go and see that in directory. So at the moment we have a directory structures like in tutorial by example hyphen app src target and pom is there. Inside target we have a tutorial by example 1.0 snapshot. So we are not going to use that in snapshot. Let me go and delete it. Even though let me go and delete that in target as well, it will be generated automatically. Yeah. So now I'm going to perform that command. So I'm in there in that in where I have a pom file and src, and after that we have to perform this command. So there is a first command I'm going to perform this, what we have talked about, that just remove that in a snapshot from here, and remove the snapshot from here as well, because if you'll go through that in a pom.xml vi you know uh, go to that in directory, right click on that and edit this file, then you'll be able to see that in what we are using. So we are using the versions 1.0, and there's snapshot and all, so it will work it out as it is. So I'm in that in here, and I have to copy that in a command. So let me copy this and paste over here, and all done, just click enter. All right, so it's stated that in 1.0 versions not exist. That means, what we need to do that in one project tutorial by example target. Okay, so in this ones what happened, I in the command I forget to like in um, in notepad, especially where I type it, I didn't mention that in a clean and package, and due to that the target folder is not there, and it's saying that in this folder is not there. So just do that in a clean packg package and then enter. Yeah, so it's doing the packaging, and after that, in packaging, because it's a cover that in test as well, so build successfully and the file has been uploaded. So now if I'll come and move into this directory, you will see that in target and artifacts also created jar file, and this jar file must be also uploaded into that in Nexus as well. So I'm already logging into that in Nexus. Click on that in browse, and click on the Maven release, and you'll be able to see inside that in a com tutorial by example and tutorial by example app versions 1.0, and this is the our jar file is there along with all other supporting file, because we have generated that in a pom file also. You want to generate a metadata. Yeah, so in second command what we'll do, I'll just change that in a version. So let's say I did that in some version changes, and now I want to perform our second versions. I did that in some changes, and we extracted the file and just put that in 1.1 and come all the way down, and over here also we'll change that in 1.1 and press enter. So now second versions of file will be created and it will be stored. It's saying that in error. Reason why, because in a pom.xml we have not changed that in a versions, because this will be also refer from that in your pom.xml. So go to that in pom.xml and we have to change over here pom.xml versions. Yeah, so now we have 1.1, and in command also we have a 1.1. Yeah, so it will be pull that in 1.1 versions, match it, and again it will be pushed into that in Nexus repository. Yeah, so now if I'll go to that in Nexus repository, click on the browse and click on the Maven release and click on the com inside, click on the tutorial by example. In tutorial by example app, you'll see that in versions 1.1 as well. So now we got that in another version. However, there is a possibilities there if you change that other release repository as well. So mandatory thing you have to do that you have to be in same folder where target folder is generating, and now you'll got that in 1.1, and we are doing that in a clean package, so it's not keeping that in previous one. It's cleaning, yeah, and generating the new artifacts. So you have to be in this folder where pom file is there and target folder is there and source. So this example we have did that in a previous sections. Just go through that in a Maven sections, how to create that in Java project with help of a Maven. You'll get this source, and rest of that in this command you can perform that. Yeah, so in second command we have a clean package and so on and so forth. It will be go. So if I perform this activity again, I think so nothing will be happen. Yeah, perform one more time. Let's say it's saying that duplicate or not. Yeah, so it's saying that to see that in full stack trace deployment file default on our project tutorial one failed to deploy artifacts, could not transfer the artifacts from itna from itna, failed to transfer file, and reason why return code is a 400 response perhaps does not allow the updating assets Maven release, because this file is already exist and it's not allowing to update. Yeah, so we need to create the different versions, so then it will be go and allow to update it. Yeah, so our target what there in these sections for understanding that mm, uh, Apache Maven integrations, yes, we did that in we configure the server ID, and that unique ID we refer that in command username and password in Apache Maven in config setting.xml located into that in config folder, and after that we perform these two command with help of that we'll able to upload that in different versions. We understand that in importance of a clean and package. Without cleaning and package the artifacts, these artifacts were not there, and we got that in error message. Then we added the clean and package. Yeah, in second step we just change that in a versions 1.0 to 1.1, and we'll try to update that. We got that in new versions updated. In third attempt we'll try to upload that in same package, but it is not allowing to upload that in Nexus repository is not allowing to update the artifacts. Yeah, so this is all about, but in more details you can refer that in https colon forward slash support dot sonatype dot com forward slash hc forward slash en hyphen us forward slash articles forward slash 1150067440008. That's all about in these lectures, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture we are going to talk about how to upload files from with help of a curl utility. So curl utility you will get that in any operating system like in Linux, CentOS and so on and so forth. So I'm using that in Windows. I have installed that in a mobile xterm underscore personal underscore 10.5. Yeah, uh, that's just for demo. Yeah, I like these tools especially because in that tool itself you can do that in a number of activity. Yeah, so and more or less I'm expecting you have already completed the especially in Java project creations with help of MI1, and because that is a mandatory, without that you will not get the files like in a tutorial by example hyphen app. Yeah, so in my previous sections we have created that in one not for like in a Java sections, Maven sections, we have created that one project called tutorial by example hyphen app under the C workspace, and in that file we have had pom.xml. One file is there which once we are going to upload in into that in our Nexus repository as a versions 1.0 under that in a group and artifacts. So our source directory is located into that in C colon workspace tutorial by example hyphen app and the pom.xml. Once you successfully uploaded, you will able to see that pom 1.0 and name of the file with a version. And this command I have just referred from that in https colon forward slash so and so forth this URL. So if you need a further more details you can go through that in respective versions 32 or whatever versions you want, and there's a huge guidance is there into that page. So now I'm going to log in into that in my um, mobile xterm utility, and I'll show you I have a pom.xml file, and now I'm going to perform that uh, now I'm going to perform that in a command, in this command, with help of that our file will be uploaded as a version 1.0. Yeah, and let me go and see that in a GUI do you have any files at the moment. In a release directory we have a com, and notice and pum is also there. 1 minute, let me refresh it. Okay, so what I'll do, instead of abc com I'll change it, because in my previous demo I was just doing that. So I'm going to change that in my uh, we'll say that in dev on repo dev repo. Yeah, and so dev repo will be created with uploading the pom.xml file and just hit enter. So all done, we are able to see that this file has been uploaded successfully, and so and so forth. Once you'll do that in a browse, refresh it, click on that in a release, you'll be able to see that in a dev repo with a pom along with the versions of that. And once you'll click this, once you'll be allowed give you that in a path. So if you'll see that in a copy the path, and or if you click on the path, that file will be downloaded. Yeah, I'm leaving up to you. And so another, let's say you did that in some changes and you want to like in another version, just change the versions and hit it again, the file will be uploaded and you'll be able to see that in another files, like this is the 1.0, this is 1.1, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And similarly we can create that in another in dev. Now this is done, you can do that in test, and you can do that in a versions 1.2, or we can start 1.0 as well. Yeah. So once you'll get that in a dev 2 as well. Sorry, a test repo as well. So now we got that in dev repo, now we got that in test repo. So in development, like in what we have used that in system configurations, we can do that in up to 20 repository. Yeah. Releases on top of that. So our target was there for uploading the file with help of a curl utility, but the big demerit is there with this utility. You have to pass that in user ID and password, which is not correct, because if someone is watching that in logs and all, they will have that in your user ID and password. So this is not suggestible. Yeah, we can set that in environment variable as a user ID and password, but still if someone able to log into that in your system, they will have that environment variable access directly. Yeah, that is a so the best way I'll suggest that in go and use that in a Maven, which ones we are going to do that in next lectures. So that's all about in this lecture, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about how to upload repository or any file from the GUI, especially in zip, jar, or WAR file. So in this lectures, I'll just cover that in one simple file, and we'll convert into that in a zip, and then we'll transfer it. So let's go and do it. So first of all, I need a one file. Let's say I have a notice file which have only 1 KB, and inside that there is a one notice txt file is there. These ones we want to upload as a Nexus repository, and this ones I'll use that as a example. So the things I have to do, I have to log into that Nexus admin admin 1 2 3 4, what, because I have changed the password and I'm able to log in it out, login. And after that we have to click on that in this button. You'll be see that in upload. So there is a get gear button, and we have a browse server contents. So there is a upload button is there, like just click on the upload, and over here we'll get the Maven release. So in Maven release you'll be see that in a upload. Yeah, so for here we have to do that in a browse, or click on the browse and type the locations and choose the name of the file. And so we got the notice.zip. It's asking the classifier and extension, so I'll just put that in zip, and all done. After that it asking the group ID. I'll put that in a com. Artifacts, I'll put that in a notic. Yeah. Yeah, and versions will put that in, this is that in just considered v1.0. Yeah, and it's, if you want to generate that in POM file for these conditions, just select these ones, and packaging we can say that in um, zip. Yeah, and click on the upload. So if you'll see that in a component uploaded into that in Maven release, and you can view it now. So once you click on the view, we able to see that in the folder called notice. Inside that in a notice, you'll able to see that in there is a one POM file, one zip file, MD file, and SSH file, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So if you want to download this file, just click on that in this file, and you'll be give that in a link. So just you have to copy this link, and that's all about that is done, and with help of that you can download it. So in this is all about how to do that in upload by that in GUI, and we'll have opportunity to go and do it. We can add that in a multiple assets as well. If you want, in the same time it will be done, uh, instead of doing that in one file one file, but it group ID, artifacts ID, and versions will be remaining same. Yeah. So this is all about in this lectures, and thanks for watching.